Hello, and welcome to As Built, the podcast from Graphic Machine about architecture firms, buildings, and how both get built. I'm your host, Patience Jones. With me is your other host,
Brian Jones.
Thank you for joining us. In today's episode, we have another tech stack feature. This time, we're talking about brand standards for video calls.
In the era of never-ending video calls, it's time to move to level 2. We figured out how to have them, and now we need to brand them.
Yes. Have you ever been on a call when you're on a call with multiple people from the same place, but they might as well be working for all different companies or maybe themselves? What we're talking about is not needing to have complete uniformity among everyone. We are not looking for video call drones. Although probably soon there'll be like AI avatars that you can just put in your little company.
A year from now.
Or 2 weeks from now. I digress. The point is, if you are on a call, let's say you're on a call with a client prospect, and there are 3 members from your firm on that call, and they're all on their own video conferencing channels. It starts with a Z. Let's just say you're all using that program that starts with a Z. You're all calling in from different places, and you all have very different backgrounds, very different lighting. The prospect may not actually get that you're all from the same firm. And the prospect may get confused, and we have seen this happen with clients, where the prospect gets confused because they don't know how person 1 fits in with the person 2 and 3 that they're talking to, and they get too embarrassed to ask halfway through the call. So instead, they just leave the call kind of not sure about who they're talking to or what the firm is capable of doing. So what we are going to give some tips for is ways that you can have some branding, some consistency without taking away everybody's individuality.
And also beginning to present a bit of hierarchy within a video call, because when you have a group of people, it's not always clear who's in charge and what the order of things are. And so helping to establish that a little bit to give some guidance to those calls to make those visual cues that may not be present in a video environment.
So what's the first thing?
The most important thing is the background and how you want to give some clear guidance for people to look at for when they're at home, perhaps working in a hybrid environment, or even within their office workplace when they're on a call and they may have a background that's filled with people moving behind them. And just some clear guidance about what that background is and what's in frame and what's not in frame, so that you don't have unpleasant surprises. For those environments where you are not able to control the background, maybe, if there's a visual background that you can provide that's branded for your staff, that could be a great option as well to provide that consistency.
And there are easier ways and more complex ways to do this. One of the easiest ways is to make a digital background that whoever's on the call can just swap in that digital background for their current background. And it just functions basically as a virtual green screen almost. And it displays whatever you want. So you can make a graphic that has, maybe it's an element of work that the firm has done. Maybe it's the firm logo. Maybe it's just a really simple design. Whatever it is, it should not be so visually distracting that the other people on the call can't watch this person and pay attention to what they're saying and focus on the message, because instead they're focusing on trying to make sense of what's going on behind them.
Well, and that extends to, there are a lot of clever features in video programs, including video backgrounds, and that would definitely fall into that category of, is it taking away from the conversation or is it adding to it? And does it cause a jarring experience for the person receiving the call that they're like, I can't look at you because it's moving too quickly or too erratically? So just things to think about.
One of the ways that you suggested earlier to somebody was to take a photograph of the backdrop that they're planning to use and kind of try to look at that with an outsider's perspective. And I think that's really good advice, whether you're using a virtual background or you're planning on doing the call from your desk or from your kitchen table or wherever, because there are things, you see those things every day and you become immune to them. You don't necessarily see things the same way that somebody looking at that for the first time would see them.
I think the other thing is the sort of the common choice within the video space of turning your video on or not turning your video on. That may need to be something that you communicate. If you're on a video call with a client and your team, half of them are on camera and half of them are not on camera, that may have an unintended impact on people's perception of your transparency, of your willingness to engage with them. So just something to think about. Where do you stand as a firm on that? And is it something that you feel comfortable stipulating?
Yeah, I mean, there's one company that we work with, and they have a policy that everybody has to have their cameras on unless there's some reason not to, like they're super sick or they're at a hospital waiting on a loved one, something like that. And then the person whose camera is off has to give some reasonable explanation on the call for why. And they don't have to go into all the personal details, but they just have to say, they have to acknowledge that their camera is off.
Yep.
Because I think sometimes that's difficult for prospects too when they're on a call with you. They don't know if they're waiting for the other person to turn their camera on. They don't know if they're ever going to come on. So if your company's standard is we always want to have our cameras on, then if you can't, acknowledge that.
And this is definitely one of those things. The reason to think about this is that as you onboard people, you want to bring this policy to their attention and that this is the practice that you expect them to follow. But also for everyone that's on your team already and has kind of, we meandered our way through the last couple of years figuring this out, but now we're to a point where this is a part of the workplace in some fashion. So having some established guidelines, I think would be really, really helpful on that front.
Especially because, and I'm going to sound like such an old person, but I think there are some generational differences. I think that generations younger than myself are very comfortable oftentimes just not turning the camera on. I don't need it. Why would I turn it on? For people who are a little bit older than me, there's still sometimes, I think, I don't know if it's not necessarily fearfulness, but I'm not still totally comfortable with this platform, so I want to see your face. And if I can't see your face, then I start to become anxious and I start to become less comfortable with you as a company. So being able to explain, okay, this is why we do this. We do this to give people comfort. We do this so that they are feeling like we're having the equivalent of the old-timey in-person meetings that they were used to.
Well, and this is part of if you are engaged in a hybrid environment, hybrid is here in some fashion for the foreseeable future. And it will be, at the very least, the way that meetings are often held between places. So it's just something to get comfortable with. So establishing some protocols, you're absolutely right. So that everybody's on the same page and everybody's expectations are kept in check.
And the same is true when you're thinking about like, how are we presenting ourselves as a firm in how people's names appear in when they come on to the call, both when they're, depending on the program that you use, when they're sort of announced by the program and what appears either over their head or in frame with them throughout the call. So adopting some sort of, okay, we always use first and last names, or just first names are fine. I have seen people become really confused when the person that they're talking to is using a shared video conferencing account. And that account is named something like Conference Room 1 or another person's name. Those names are really useful for people throughout the meeting because if there are a lot of people on the call, they may forget what your name is.
Yep.
And being able to see that there makes it a lot easier for them to address you. They feel more comfortable. If they get the name wrong, they're going to be mortified. And if they can't find your name, then they start to panic and that's all they're thinking about. They're not paying attention to anything else that you're saying.
Well, and as a person with an extremely common name, it's really important to think about having more than just your first name because as I've been on many calls with many Brians on the same call. So it's okay. Just something to think about.
The other thing that I learned is that what you put in that window the first time you meet somebody is what they will call you for the rest of your relationship with them. So I had been on some giant like networking conference webinar thingy, and I didn't want to put my full name in because I just was sort of lurking. So I put my initials, PJ, which some people call me, but not very often. I certainly don't go by that. I forgot to reset it when I went into a mastermind meeting. And the person running the mastermind saw that that was my name, and that was my name forever.
Yep.
That was what I got called. That person wasn't wrong. Why would they think that I would have a different name up there?
Yep.
But I made sure I reset it because it's just not what I want to go by.
Well, what are the big takeaways?
So I think the big takeaways are accepting that video conferencing is an extension of your brand, just like your social media accounts, just like your advertising, just like somebody going to a networking event. You think about if you were having an in-person meeting, you would make sure, okay, the conference room is clean. We're serving from our branded coffee cups. Everybody comes in on time. Everybody's looks appropriate. That's what we're talking about here. Everybody still gets to be themselves, but we're mindfully removing barriers to people hearing what we have to say. And that's the biggest takeaway, I think.
I think the only thing other that I would add to that is that you're helping set expectations within the firm. And so that in the absence of making decisions, you provided them a decision-making framework to get to an outcome that you feel like will be a good representation of the firm.
I like it. Let them use their mind grapes to think about other things.
Perfect.
Yes. Well, thank you for using your mind grapes to join us, and we will see you next time.